This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of the modern X-Men films. And with this, I'm looking at the modern films from the Fox era. With it, it's going to be focusing mainly on the younger generation of actors, but I'll also be looking at Days of Future Past with it, since that one has both the younger and older actors in it. And I'll just go through these in chronological order, or more release order, since Days of Future Past is technically the last one, but also the second one, with considering when you'd go with it. So I'll be going X-Men First Class, followed by Days of Future Past, then to Apocalypse, and finally Dark Phoenix. And starting with X-Men First Class, this is a really solid film. It's a good start for the X-Men team, and you get to see a good telling of the origins. I'm not a huge X-Men fan, so I don't know how accurate it is to the comics, but I think it is interesting to see how they decided to have them form in this universe and to have Professor X in there and Magneto, seeing their relationship and getting to look a lot more into Magneto's backstory with it and the horrors he had to face and how he became a villain. And yeah, with it, that was a really enjoyable part of the story. It technically counteracts a lot of stuff that was in X3, but that's not that bad. That film wasn't too good. I already talked about that last week, but yeah. With that, I really enjoy the film. Having, I believe, Shaw as the villain. I think his name, I can't remember what his first name was, or his secret identity. But with it, he was an interesting villain. And throughout the rest of it, it was really interesting to see this first class of the X-Men form up and start to see them take sides and decide if they want to be more peaceful or more extreme like Magneto. And now moving on to my personal favorite of the films, Days of Future Past, which is a really solid story. It bridges both generations. It's ahead of the X-Men films because stuff like Logan and Deadpool will clearly rank over it, but still, it's a really solid film on there, and I'd say it's probably number three with Logan and the first Deadpool being over it. And with it, I really enjoy this film. It is a great time travel story where you get to see them try and fix the mistakes of their past. It's a perfect bridging between the modern timeline and the original timeline. And with it, it sends it into what was at first an interesting new direction, but a direction that made the same mistakes as the previous one, as we'll soon see when I go on to reviewing Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. But I still really love this film. It sets up everything with a nice ending until Logan happens. And with it, I really enjoyed this film. It was really interesting. We have Magneto made more complex. We have Quicksilver, which was just a fun scene he had. And showed how much better he was in the MCU version. One of the few times you could say that about the Fox X-Men films doing something better in the MCU. Especially, considering how messy it got towards the end. and towards the middle of it. But yeah, honestly, just looking at it, Days of Future Past is, as I said, my favorite of the X-Men films, and my third favorite in the entire universe overall. And with it, they had a solid story. I think they did a good job. Now, moving on, I think that going into Apocalypse, I don't think this film was that bad. I'm gonna say the same about Dark Phoenix, but I feel like it was more bland than anything. And with it, I thought they did a good job making the film. They didn't do an amazing job, and with that, they just didn't do an amazing job with it. I don't really know how to say anymore. It feels like they're trying to do an X2 again, and with it, it feels like they failed with that. Apocalypse was not an amazing villain, but the film was still enjoyable enough overall. I don't hate watching it, and I'll watch it every time I, go and rewatch the films, but it's one that I'm not wanting to go and just rewatch on its own, like Logan, the Deadpool films, or even something like Days of Future Past, because honestly, it's not too amazing. And with it, it's just supposed to show some of the flaws in this that they didn't really have a plan after they reset the universe, and with it, they probably should have thought things through a little more, and they could have had some solid films, but they're shown a lot more in the next film and the final film we'll be talking about today, which is Dark Phoenix. And the problem with this film isn't fully on the filmmaker's fault. It's partially on Disney, who had just recently bought it out, and according to I think a lot of rumors and stuff and leaks, they forced them to change a lot of the movie so it wouldn't compete as much with Captain Marvel. And with that, that's a pretty disappointing fact because I feel like this could have been a really good movie, and we don't know how much of it they were forced to change, but we definitely know it was at least the final act of it. And with that, I think that's probably the weakest part of the film, where I think the rest of it was decent. Mystique's death was extremely obvious going into it. Like, I thought it was so obvious that it was going to be a trick, but it turns out it didn't go like that, and they made this character's death so obvious. And with it, I still really enjoy the film. I think that they did a decent job with it. I didn't hate it as much, but I still see it as a flawed film, and it seems it's more on Disney than anyone else for causing it to fail. But yeah, honestly, I enjoy the film. I don't hate it. I don't love it either, but I'll enjoy it when I watch it. It's flawed, but it's something that you can watch, and it's not going to be terrible. But yeah, that's just really my thoughts overall of these films. With the modern era, they started off really strong, and then they had two weak but still enjoyable films. At least that's my opinion. A lot of people will say that the first two were anywhere from good to amazing, and the last two went from bad to completely terrible. But I'm not that overly critical, and I'll enjoy a story even if it isn't fully perfect, and I'm willing to accept some of the flaws in them, especially for Dark Phoenix, where it's not really on them because Disney was doing what would be considered extreme if we didn't have everything with Warner Brothers Discovery going on right now, and that makes it pretty reasonable in comparison, but still, I'm do feel bad that the story was changed a lot for Dark Phoenix. But I want to know what you think of these films. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.